As far as selective mutism and how it affects college, we do have to accommodate a lot of the learning challenges that some of these children may have and their communication. For example, social engagement, communicating with teachers, with peers. It is really difficult, making friends, keeping friends. Those things are like the basic kind of types of things they're challenged with in class as far as participation, speaking up, giving presentations, being able to initiate with the teachers, being able to reach out to the teachers in any way, like having these sorts of accommodations. When you hear some of the things I'm saying as far as communication, can you give us some examples that you've added as far as some accommodations for kids that have communication issues? Like you mentioned autism, although the far majority of kids with SM don't have autism. Kids with autism obviously have challenges in some of these areas as well. So can you share some of the types of accommodations that you've kind of written for families just to give them an idea of some of the areas that they can get accommodated?
Sure. And I relate to a lot of this. I struggle with lifelong social anxiety, and it's possible as a child I would have been diagnosed with SM if people had been on top of that. So I understand that, and self-advocacy, is I get the challenges with that, both for myself and for one of my kids. I'm not involved in kind of the formal accommodation requests, although we can certainly talk with families about what would be helpful. We look at what are they getting in high school now, and what do they feel they need in college, and also what have the professionals recommended. So ideally, you want some documentation from a professional that says, I recommend that in college, this student get the following accommodations. Sometimes, let's see, a single room in the residence hall is one that families may not have really thought about prior to college, because unless you're going to a boarding school in high school, it wouldn't really be relevant in high school if you're not living in a dorm or a residence hall in high school. But there are accommodations in college that are not academic, that are in the residence hall or the dining hall or mobility around the campus. So that's something to think about too. Accommodations is not just in the classroom, it's not just academic, it's broader than that. And from mental health, accommodations could be an emotional support animal to live with you in the residence hall, which again might go along with a single room, depending on what the animal is. There might be accommodations like being able to take time for therapy, might be, some flexibility around the schedule, might need to have classes at certain times. Sometimes priority registration can be a helpful accommodation that a lot of colleges offer. There's lots of accommodations around reading materials, speech to text, text to speech, getting professors' notes, getting recordings of lectures. But working on those self-advocacy skills so that you can talk to your professor or talk to your roommate, get the help you need in college, whether it's from a tutor or counselor, super helpful for all students.
You brought up single room, and sometimes when I bring that up to our families, they'll say, well, I don't want my child to have a single room because it's really important that he or she socialize. And I say, absolutely, that's one of the biggest hallmarks is the need for socialization. But a lot of our kids with SM have sensory sensitivities. Like you said, social anxiety is a big part of selective mutism. And so sometimes what I've experienced is that they need that downtime. They need the time away from, and also the roommate situation may not always be ideal. And so it becomes another stressor for them. And what I tell families is that the kids can get their socialization through clubs and activities that we help them with to find those. So I'm an advocate of a single room, at least the first year, unless the family's like, absolutely not, or they're going with someone they know and they're comfortable, or they have enough confidence, social communication confidence and skills to be able to be in that room. And I think that's where working with a treatment professional that knows that child is so important, because I often have to guide them in this process. So a single room is definitely something that I see as a positive. Also, the emotional support animal, that's been going along really, really well too. It's also something that they can have to share with others, where it's like an attention off them, because we know with social anxiety that kind of attention on them is difficult. So having an animal, walking the dog, if that's possible, and they have the responsibility skills to be able to take care of that animal, that's another accommodation. I just wanted
And
to kind of
that may trigger social engagement too. If you have a
yeah.
dog, on
Exactly.
campus and you're out and about walking your dog, there's a good chance people are going to stop you and want to,
Exactly.
oh, can I come to your room and, hang out with your dog and ask you, what breed is your dog? So that can trigger a lot of social engagement. Going back to single room for a second, yeah, it's something that's worth a longer discussion because there are those sort of pros and cons that you highlighted. I also have social sensory sensitivity. I would have been much happier in a single room in college too. And as you said, I'm with you on that. There are sure if you get along with your roommate, if that works as a potential social opportunity, great. But the roommate's just one person. There's thousands of students at college and many ways to connect, whether it's clubs, classes, sports. So, or just, if you're a friendly person, just whoever else is sitting in the dining hall, if you're outgoing. So you don't have to rely on the roommate as that one way to build a social life. And if you're living in the residence hall without a roommate, you walk out of your room, there's a whole bunch of other students there. And depending on the climate and whatnot, students may be out lounging about, they may be hanging out in a common space. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to build connections within the residence hall, even if you have a single room.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I said, I'm an advocate of that. I've seen that work better than not. And it's interesting. One of the strategies that we work on with kids is something called common questions. We want to minimize their need to think and process. So if somebody asks you a question, sometimes that freeze occurs. So if they can predict questions that are asked, it minimizes their need to think and process because they prepare. So having a dog walking around campus, like you said, what's your dog's name? What kind of breed is it? How old is your dog? And so they're ready for these questions and then they prepare their answers. That's a really key strategy. Action plans. Where are you going? Who's going to be there? What questions can be asked? What are the answers? What could you ask? And so we help the kids navigate these kind of conversations in all the situations. And so when we brought up that animal situation with emotional support, I'm like, wow, that's a perfect opportunity to continue that with the kids.